Have you ever really wanted to make your own world within D&D, but you just don't know where to start? Well, in this video, I'm going to give you some advice that I've taken and I've used over my time in creating my own world of Talanis. Before we get into this, if you could hit that subscribe button, that would be great. But like I said, we're going to be talking about creating worlds, and it does sound overwhelming at first. It definitely does. But it's one of those things where you don't have to do what I did and start with an entire world. First of all, I'll show you the map of the world, which of course, you don't have to do a full map of the world to start with. It can be overwhelming, and I will do a video at some point talking about how I made this map. But what we're going to do is focus on a specific area, and we're going to focus on the country of Vulran within the continent of Elgahos and the Vulran Desert. We're going to talk about a small town, which could be an ideal starting point for a campaign, and we're going to talk about a city as well and how I create those. So the first thing I do before creating any of my cities is I employ the guards method. Now, if you don't know what the guards method is, I will briefly explain it. For those of you who do know, feel free to skip ahead to the next bit. But the guards method is an acronym, and the G stands for government. So when you look at your town, who's the mayor? What is the kind of organization here? Like, who's making sure that people pay their taxes? Things like that. You don't have to have them massively fleshed out, but just to have a building in your town to say, okay, well, that's the town hall. That's where the mayor and the clerks and people who take notes on these things, that's where they count the money and do the taxes, things like that. The U stands for underworld, so i.e. is there a thieves guild here? It can be as generic as you like. Is there a thieves guild here? Are there an underground group who are trying to rebel against the authorities here with a little bit more of a kind of political intrigue in mind? Then you've got A for altars. Now, this is one where altars, i.e. places people go to pray, places people go to be religious, temples, things like that. This isn't set in stone because you might want your world to say, okay, well, actually, the gods fell in ancient times. And how has the world dealt with that since? And you might go, okay, well, actually, on the outskirts of town, there is an old altar that has crumbled to dust with a few people who still cling on to the religion of the past. You might say, my world doesn't have gods at all. So what do you have instead of altars? How do people kind of access spirituality? Is there a little grove outside where people connect with nature? Little things like that where you can play with it, and it doesn't have to be the exact set in stone rules of the guards method. R is for resources. So how do people live here? Take Vulran Port, for example. It's on the coast. So the ideal thing here is you'd say, okay, well, number one, they get trade in, and that is something that is a big part of Vulran Port in my world, is that they are a huge trade port, as they are right in the middle of the continent here, the continent of Elgahos, if I move that across slightly. They are a huge trade hub to bring things into the capital city of Vulnahasi, but even to take things further afield into the country of Lindenvale down here, for example. So that's what you've got to think about. Okay, they trade. What else do they do? Okay, well, they're on a river and they're right next to the sea, where the mouth of the river meets the sea. So they will also have a lot of income from fishing and things like that. So these are the little things you've got to think about. Then D is defenses. So do they have a small kind of naval force? Do they have a local guard with a guardhouse and a guard captain? And then S is for social hubs. So is there a tavern? The classic D&D thing. I'm sat in an imaginary tavern right now. Is there a tavern? Is there a marketplace? Is there a market hall where people go to bid on auctions and things like that? Any of those things are the basics for building out a town. Now, once you've got that, and that's not a method that I've created, that's a method that has been around for quite a while. And there is a specific YouTube video I watched explaining the guards method, and I'll put his name on the screen now because I don't want to not credit people, but I can't remember off the top of my head. The three things that I think about, and these are my main things when I'm creating a town, is why would the surrounding geography influence a town? So that comes into your resources thing again. Like, they're on a river, but they're also next to the sea, and I'll explain that in just a second. In fact, let's go into it straight away. So actually, if we go into the Vulran port setting, this is what I do for each of my towns. So I create a little title page, Vulran port town setting. So when we go down here, the main things that I do is I cover the geography, the history, and the economics, so that somebody says, okay, well, where's it placed? Well, it's a small harbour town to the east of the Vulran Desert. The north bank is where the river Uktan meets the ocean. And then, of course, yeah, where it's placed, basically. That informs you on some of the other things that you're going to use for your town, as mentioned before. What's the history of it? It was built post-catastrophe, and catastrophe was like a world war event in my world. So it was built post-catastrophe. Economics, like I said, you can't see that now, but it's a major trade hub for Elgahos, and brings its money through chartering ships as well as delivering and selling goods. So that gives you a basic idea. But then you want to have a look at it and say, okay, well, why would the geography of the surrounding area influence the town? And one of the things that I've included in this one to make it unique, which actually, to be fair, comes into my point too as well. What is unique about this town? What is different from every other port town? So I've put, okay, there's a sailors' academy in this town, a large school of learning for budding sailors. So people from all over the continent might travel specifically to this town to learn to become sailors, to work on merchant vessels, to work on warships and anything like that. They would learn how to sail ships at this place, which gives it a unique factor of why a party might want to go there. They might say, well, actually, the NPC that we're looking for came through this academy once upon a time. So maybe we go back and find their teacher and see if we can find a little bit more about their past, and it might inform us of their future. Of course, with it being on the coast as well, you've got the Harbour Master's office as well, a building that houses the administration work of the port. And like I said, it doesn't have to be massively detailed, because when you actually go there in a campaign and in a session, you think, okay, well, the Harbour Master's office, they're actually going to be going there this session. I know, because they've got a question about a certain thing. Okay, I'll flesh that out a little bit for this session. These are basic documents that mean that I don't have to improvise the entire world. And of course, you can go into as much detail or as little detail as you like. Of course, I've got things like a tavern here, the Sultry Siren, a Moody Mermaid signpost outside a large tavern, and it's quieter and less rowdy than the Sailor's Rest, which is a rowdy tavern frequented by sailors and visitors. So you give at least one or two different taverns or pubs in the place as well, to give people a little bit more of a sense of scale for the place. Temples, like I said, the harbour, things like that we answered in the guards method, you would then put in these kind of places of interest. Like I said, you can go into as much detail or as little detail as you like, because here we've got another road, Vulran Port Road, and it's got some of the things that are here, but it's more specifically to where it's located in the town. Then you've got the promenade, where the things are located in the town. And each time I go into one of these little zoomed in locations, if you will, we can have a little look and we go, oh, okay, actually, let's have a look at who are the people of interest there, because people go, and the most annoying / catches you off guard thing as a dungeon master is someone says, okay, what's that NPC's name? And you go, Steve the Brave. That's quite good. But in reality, if you go and say, okay, well, who's the harbour master then? And they want to go up and speak to them. I say, okay, it's Zoros Wavia. He's a dwarf with a scarred right cheek and dark hair tied up, a bit like my own. Probably where I got the idea. They want to go to the Sailors' Academy. Okay, Sailmaster Westim is a female gnomish character wearing leather armour and a privateer's hat. Give them a little distinguishing feature. Go into as much detail as you want. I like to do a lot of voices and accents in my game. Obviously, you don't have to. You can put under that maybe Scottish accent. So when they go and see them, they might be like, oh, welcome to the Sailors' Academy. How can I help you? And it just gives you a little bit of an idea when you go somewhere that this is what this person's going to look like and this is what this person's going to sound like. So that's the general thing. That's a small town. And this is what I was going to say about not overwhelming yourself. You could write a document like this in an hour or two. and you've got a starting location for your campaign. Now, I will also be doing a video on how to start a campaign. Obviously, it'll be not how to start a campaign in terms of every single thing that you need to do, but in terms of what does it look like when you're starting a campaign? How can you bring your characters together? What's the intro like? Things like that, basically. But doing something like this with a small town, a little port town like this, you then start to say, okay, well, what's going on here that means that a campaign would be starting here? But you've got the basics down on paper to say this is where the campaign's going to start. So that's the example of a small town. Of course, you want to go to a city now. You've travelled from Vulran Port. They've gone past Vultivi, which is in my world, just for a bit of context, is a huge town built into a temple. So it's like a religious pilgrimage sort of place. But they want to go to the capital city of Vulnahasi and go to the big town, the big city, and find out what's there. This is one of the first ones I did when I built my world, actually. So similar thing, you've got Vulnahasi city setting here. So again, geography, history, economics, places of interest. This is what I like to do for the cities, is have the city of Vulnahasi as the location. So then you've got, okay, this is the overall city. What are the most important people in the city? Rulers of the city, leader of the citadel, university headmaster, industrial district manager, trade district manager, residential district manager. And then you have the main points of interest. But then again, we zoom in a little bit. Vanar Palace, which is one of the actual zoomed in pieces that we do. I've actually got a map as well of the actual zoomed in town as well. Of course, I'll show you again once we've done this on another video how you can create maps like this. So when I'm talking about the industrial district, that's over here with Surani Industries. You can, once you create a map, I think that also helps as well to say, okay, well, you've got an industrial district, you've got a residential district, you've got a merchants district, a school district, the palace, the citadel, etc. But what you've also got is you can zoom in and go, okay, well, this area of houses is called the Lanes, the Golden Mile, the Actors Quarter. It gives you a more of an idea of what you actually are looking at when you go to a city, because it wouldn't just be, oh, this is the district. You've got street names and things like that. But again, with this, we said, okay, well, how do they make their money? This is Surani Industries, so there's a mine here. And you're looking at those things and going, this is how it's affected. Vulnahasi is built on a large desert plateau, a huge desert plateau. And on top of that is a city. So what they're going to do, okay, let's delve down inside that. What's inside there? Oh, there's precious gems and things that we can mine. There's a river that goes to Vulran Port, the Uktan River. It cuts right through the middle of the city. So you've got a big valley in the center where you've got fishing huts and little like little balconies and bridges that interconnect with them all, and it just gives you a more full world. But like I said, the main thing is, why would the surrounding geography affect the town? So what I've just explained, what is unique about it? It's built on a desert plateau with a river cutting right through the middle of it. There's no other cities or towns like it in the world. And what are the people like and the descriptions? So the leaders of the city, the Eighth Vanar in this, are these beings who seem to have been around forever and have been the leaders of this city for so long that nobody else can remember anybody else ever being in charge. So what do they look like? What are their roles within that? And then you come down and you go, okay, well, who owns the theatre? You go down to the smaller levels, like who's the big bosses? But then who owns the theatre? Who owns the Guran guest house? Olmo Guran, who was my character from Baldur's Gate 3. I had him as a retired orcish proprietor of the Guran guest house. You just add little things in there. Sometimes you can add little things that are for you. But the main thing is, use the guards method to go, have I got the basics of what I need for a town? Then you can create a document like this. Location, geography, history, economics, places of interest, persons of interest. what's unique about the town, people and descriptions, and it just gives you that basis to go, okay, I've made a town. They want to go to the next town. Okay, I'm going to make another town. You can do it like that. Well, I went crazy and did the whole thing. Well, I've done the whole thing for one continent. But that's the idea. Let me know if you want to see some more videos like this, explaining how I maybe made these maps, things like that. But there'll be plenty more on the way. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you in the next one.